us the 5th most populous country in the world. Our population is young, with a median age of just over 20 years. While this should be a powerful advantage, it is also a serious responsibility. Our growth rate of over 2.5% remains amongst the highest in South Asia. At this pace, Pakistan could cross 300 million within a few years and may approach 380 million by 2050. This rapid growth is not just a number. It directly affects the lives of our people and the future of our country. It places immense pressure on our healthcare system, especially maternal and child health. It stretches our education system, leaving millions of children without access to quality learning. It increases the demands for jobs, for housing, for clean water, for sanitation, for transport, and for energy. Without careful planning, rapid growth weakens per capita income and slows our ability to improve living standards. Globally, the contrast is stark. Many Asian countries have slowed population growth through education, women's empowerment, and access to health services. In much of the Western world, populations are stable or declining, allowing greater investment per person in health, education, and infrastructure. Pakistan's fast growth, without parallel investment in human development, makes it harder to deliver basic services and harder for families to move out of poverty. And yet, with challenge comes opportunity. Pakistan stands at a crossroads with a large and growing population, a sizable youth cohort, and rapidly evolving socio-economic realities. If we provide every child with at least kindergarten to year 12 education and offer vocational training to upskill our youth, we will not only strengthen our own GDP, but also position our human capital to support other economies facing a population implosion. This young, skilled workforce has the potential to transform Pakistan's destiny, to build real economic strength, and to elevate our standing on the global stage. The decisions we take today on health, education, gender equity, and economic development are investments in Pakistan's future. They can yield results in as little as 5 years and have a powerful compounding impact. If even one person in a family is able to attain economic prosperity, they can lift their entire household out of poverty. Over the course of this summit, we will hear from some of the nation's leading voices, those shaping policy, advancing research, driving development, and defending the rights and choices of our citizens. Together, we will explore how Pakistan can restore balance in its population growth, empower women and young people, and ensure that development is inclusive, sustainable, and equitable. At DawnMedia, we believe deeply in informed dialogue, credible information, and public engagement, and in taking positions rooted in the long-term interest of Pakistan rather than short-term convenience. This summit reflects those values. Across the next 2 days, through our newspaper, television programming, and digital platforms, we will bring you ideas, detailed reporting, expert analysis, and focused storytelling so that the conversations here reach people across the country and help shape a more informed national debate. I would like to thank our distinguished speakers, panelists, and participants for their willingness to share their insights. I also extend our sincere thanks to the Federal Ministry of Planning and Development, the Federal Ministry of Health Services Regulation and Coordination, and the governments of Sindh and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, as well as our partners for their commitment and leadership in advancing this critical initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, the issues of population, development, and governance affect every Pakistani. Let us work together to defuse this population time bomb and turn it into our country's greatest dividend. Together, we can restore the balance and build a future where opportunity, equity, and prosperity are within reach for all Pakistanis. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Nazafreen, for setting the tone of the conference. We would now like to invite Senator Sherry Rehman to the podium for an inaugural address.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. The Dawn Group's CEO, you're the CEO now, Nazafreen Saigol, and MNA Shaista Malik, eminent former ministers, Farooq Sattar, excellencies, the diplomats here, friends from the media, and most importantly, our development partners. I don't mean in a financial way, but those who have been holding the candle up in times when no one was interested. And for that, I must recognize the Population Council, for which the Population Council is run really by Zeba Sattar, and I do want to give her the credit for keeping the conversation going when no one really was interested. So thank you for convening this, the Dawn Group. It looks like we have a silent partnership on being the patron of subjects no one really cares about at large scale. But I'm wrong here, obviously, because people do care. All those in the room are here because they care. And I think that in itself is a token and mark of, give us a mark of appreciation to remember that these are subjects that are growing steadily closer and closer to our hearts and minds. But what's the challenge, ladies and gentlemen? I hear that a minister is missing, so I told Nazafreen, if I may use your first name, because I worked with your mother in the Dawn Group, that we are, well, the upside is that we have more time to talk candidly. And here, not that I think ministers shouldn't, they should, and that's what makes any discussion so compelling. I had assumed there will be some kind of, because the planning minister was here, some kind of scene setting, which he's very good at doing, on the data that is driving the pressures on climate change. But I'm going to pepper some of the discussion with that, and let's see if we can stay engaged on the subject and not bore you all this time of the morning. So, ladies and gentlemen, how have I become interested in population? Because, well, it's something that we've all been talking and reading about. And 7 years ago, I wrote about 3 ticking time bombs for Pakistan. Unchecked population growth was one of them, water scarcity, and, of course, climate stress. In my view, they are no longer ticking. They have noiselessly exploded around us. They've already done the damage that they needed to do. Let's look at water. Water is scarce, and it's 2025. I remember shouting from Parliament that Pakistan will be water scarce, not just stressed by 2025, according to the UN. Here we are at 2025, and we haven't thought about the huge amounts of water that are missing in our communities and our cities for our citizens to use safely and conveniently. I see it as a fundamental right. Climate obviously is at its frontline heat in Pakistan, as we are the most vulnerable country globally from 2022, according to the Global Risk Index. Now, population growth, in my view, and I'm sure everyone agrees, has passed some kind of a danger line. Why I say that is because it means you have the figures in front of you, 251 million, and those glaze our eyes. Just break it down a little, it means 6 million more people every year. Now, of course, we love people. We love our people. We love children. We love births. We mourn our deaths. What goes around here is the pressure on our resources. The word balance has been used in the title of the summit, in its subtitle, and I think that's where we need to find our pivot. Where do we find our pivot, and why we say that this is such a crisis now is because we need to wonder why so many of our children go hungry. Malnutrition is a big number here. We also need to then ask how will our health clinics, already in deficits, service the sick, the needy, the women and the children needing urgent care, or why we have 26 million children out of school. You see, these are very important numbers, and added to that, Ms. Nazafreen Saigol mentioned the youth bulge. Pakistan talks about this demographic dividend nonstop. At which point does that dividend become a challenge? when you are not able to provide the 1.5 million jobs needed per year. That's a huge number of jobs. 1.5 million jobs needed per year because the population is also growing. This youth bulge is unaccommodated, is looking towards a future where even if they have a degree, they are unable to find the jobs they need. So, you know, these are things that we need to think about in terms of how the population growth is taking us, where it's taking us, and what pressures it's putting on our economy, on our per capita incomes, and of course, the lived reality of people, especially the 45% that are now under the poverty line. These are not my figures, these are the World Bank's. Now, with our economic growth dragged down by climate shocks and institutional frigidity, let's not pretend that is not the case, we are not able to lift millions out of the poverty that I spoke about. Quite the opposite. If GDP gets impacted at 8%, like it did in the 2022 floods and a lower percentage in the recent floods, population numbers stretch those losses further. There's simply more people to save, more people to shelter, more people to feed, house, clothe, and save from the diseases that arise from waterborne standing water that we see then. But, you know, this goes on. Climate change exacerbates all. It's like a multiplier, but then so is population. All threats, all challenges. And then that brings me to consider, I remember saying this to Zeba Sattar long ago, that we must be the only country proving John Malthus and his doomsday predictions, right? I mean, probably the economists will disagree, but basically what he spoke about, because obviously inequality comes into the mix, and so does technology. That's how countries have leapfrogged their population. They have exceeded their economic growth rates above their population. So what Malthus basically said in a nutshell was that if the two rates converge, you've got a real problem. And then eventually, you know, the 20th century and the 21st century proved John Malthus wrong, except right here. If you have a 2.6% growth rate, population growth rate, and your GDP rate hovers around that, it did for many years, and it keeps coming down when there is a climate shock or there's another kind of disaster, you then have the two converging. So, when population growth matches or outpaces GDP, you have a serious structural problem. It presses down on all macroeconomic indicators, and it creates what I call a scarcity crisis. So unchecked population growth creates a crisis of scarcity. You and I don't feel it. We are obviously sitting in Serena Hotel, which has reverted to using plastic bottles. Ahem, management, side note, which it shouldn't be, and we can talk about why, but here's what's going on here. We are in an affluent, or rather, arc of elite privilege. We are not feeling the pressures of the population burden or unchecked growth. And when you talk to a person who has 6 children in his or her family, they say, well, we need the children. Yet, they find that the mouths are far too many to feed. In that situation, I call the scarcity vector becoming gendered immediately, because the population crisis is also not a regular crisis. It's not just a plain structural crisis, it's a gendered crisis. It is experienced most by women and also by vulnerable women at the bottom of the social pyramid. And now that social pyramid is 45%, right? So, because when there's not enough food on the table, the food goes to the boys in the family. Mothers do this. Now, I'm talking to you about what happens in communities and tables where the mouths are too many to feed, because this is what it's about. If you can feed your population, if you can give them clean water, and you can build their resilience for the future, then you will be able to guarantee them the jobs, your economy has the bounce. Right now, our population is at 241.5 billion, since the presentations are not here. And I'll say that this makes us the 5th most populous country in the world, right? Now, 2.55 is the annual rate. I would suggest it's 2.6 at the very least. When we're sitting at dinner, we think it's 2.7, because a lot is not accounted for. And so each year, we're adding 6 million more Pakistanis to very overstretched systems. Those schools aren't out there, those clinics aren't out there yet, right? So if this growth continues unchecked, the demographic pressure will nullify per capita GDP as well. At a growth rate of 2.7, wherever you go, every citizen will feel very little improvement. They will not feel the improvement in their lives. So even a 1% increase, a 1% increase in population growth reduces per capita income at 35,000 rupees annually. Now, that's a very big number. There's been a lot of talk about why we are not able to understand how our future is going to be flatlined. I think we do understand it, but we have not figured out what is a priority. This is a development and daily priority to me, like climate change, like providing water. And I want to tell you how they all interconnect, my ticking time bombs, which have exploded. You know, we're already water scarce, the bell was tolling, and we are now one of the 3rd most water-stressed countries in the world. None of us here probably experience water scarcity, but that is not how it is lived as a reality in large swathes of Pakistan, including even affluent communities. And if we continue at this rate, which when our population will reach 315 million in 2050, then you're going to need 60 million acre-feet more of irrigation, just irrigation water, to keep the country moving. We don't have the storage, we don't have the capacity right now. So, I mean, there's no rocket science. We have to reduce our consumption. Pakistan is one of the most high-consuming water countries. I mean, our usage of water and therefore its waste is probably the 4th highest in the world. So before we start rushing to the limits of saying, why haven't we got these huge dams, which are a thing of the past? Huge dams no longer get the consortium financing, they have huge run-over costs, and they displace communities, and they also stop the run of the river. You have 2 large storage dams, and they generate hydel, and the energy experts will tell you more, and in any energy conversation, this can be addressed. But the pressure on water, which I feel you cannot talk about population without talking about water, is really about who bears the burden. The stress on women, the stress on scarcity. Why do I bring women up again? Because they are carrying the water. You don't all have it in your taps. In Pakistan, 72% of a woman's day, of 3/4 of women in Pakistan, is taken up carrying water. Shocking, isn't it? But please look at the statistics on the world over, Africa and other communities, especially rural communities. The women are carrying water for miles on end. That also goes for high urban density populations and cities where water is carried from a central tank because it just isn't available. Or say, for instance, in Ormara and Balochistan, there'll be one pump in the center of the village. So you're going to, this is how it's experienced outside our heated rooms. And that's the important conversation here, because unchecked demographic growth will outrun our water resources. It imperils security, food, as well as water infrastructure, and the public health capacity to cope to actually emerge resilience, because resilience becomes too much of a buzzword for everyone to use wherever they want, convenient. But it's linked to things like having the sanitation in your neighborhood, the schools in your neighborhood, the hospitals in your neighborhood. It's linked literally to development per capita. And that's one report that I will be bringing Dawn in a month or so. The vulnerability index has been done by the Population Council, well done, Population Council, and we'll be bringing a resilience one soon, how to actually measure that. So food, climate, and poverty are all impacted. You know, we now have children that are, 40% of children under 5 are stunted. Again, this is simply because of malnutrition. And one more thing, because women, their mothers, are not able to make the health choices that they need to, or on spacing of births, or how to find the food to feed their children, or how many to have in the household, because they cannot feed all the children, including boys. So you have this crisis, and it usually does not get addressed or linked like this. It is entirely linked to unchecked population growth, and of course, the non-access to critical resources, including food, water, schooling, all of this. But food and water and malnutrition are making this happen. And the women's ability to say, we cannot continue to bear 5, 6, 7 children, okay, because their bodies are the front lines for decision making. And this has to be addressed squarely. I also want to talk a little bit about how the job market will be impacted, or rather the lack of jobs. We have a 7% unemployment rate. That's high. And we have then young people graduating, unable to find the jobs, and then you see the serial discontent. What that does is it raises discontent in the state's ability to provide them a climate where employment is easily available, where their household won't lose 4% of their savings every time there's a health trauma. It's much more, or there's a climate, the rain takes their roof out. So people lose, households lose huge percentages of their savings and income. Their disposable income is restricted when there are many mouths to feed, and there's a health trauma, or there is a climate shock now. And those are the most recurring in Pakistan's current realities. Any economist will tell you how much impact one health shock makes and sets back a family of, say, 5 to 6, because, well, it is a family of 5 to 6. What can you do right now? But what you can do is start understanding that is not a neutral demographic trend. It's a public health crisis borne by women and children, and of course the men who have to provide. Now, what that does is it compromises reproductive rights. I will get to the part of what needs to be done, but what we do need to understand is that there is demand for the C word, for contraception. Contraception prevalence rate is what you need to talk about, okay? CPR of another kind. We always think of it as the life-saving CPR, the cardiovascular CPR, right? Less people have heard about contraceptive prevalence rate. That's what you need to talk about, because contraceptive usage is what will lower the birth rate, the fertility rate in our country, which is extremely high. It's the highest in Asia. Now, what that does, the inability to have contraception available easily, cheaply, we will come to why that needs to be cheap, and accessible as a family decision, it makes women constantly bear the burden of pregnancies that their families are unable to provide for, or they are. So every 50 minutes before we finish this session, a woman in Pakistan will die due to pregnancy, or childbirth complications. She will not have access to a health facility, and perish the thought, and the thought is not perished at all, you will have a climate shock. In 2022, it seared on my brain that 650,000 women were giving birth or facing pregnancy on life rafts, or if they were very lucky, under a plastic tent, a tarpaulin. Plastic is a bad word. So here we have a seriously gendered crisis, 50 minutes. So you then have women facing trauma. You have 11,000 maternal deaths after that. And we have child brides. We have child brides who cannot speak in their family environment where decisions are made for them, or a husband who has the prerogative of male privilege, which is bestowed on them in their homes by their families, and the young brides can't meet that challenge. So 1 in 6 women in Pakistan were married as children. How will they make health decisions, you tell me? This is a reproductive health crisis also. And that is why we keep pushing in Parliament, in Sindh, and wherever province we can. Now, all provinces have to do this. I think we only have Punjab coming up soon. I'm certainly not going to finish in 2 minutes. I only have Punjab coming up soon, and I think KP. The other provinces have all gone, Sindh, Balochistan, and thank God, Islamabad Capital Territory, it took 20 years, has finally passed the Child Marriage Act. So children, you are a child until you're 18 for your driving license, for voting, but not for being married, okay? So the age of maturity counts in the reproductive health choice you make. She will also be better educated. Obviously, female literacy also counts, to be able to say, well, I think that we need to space our births. And what has been helpful, so the good news here is that the Council of Islamic Ideology has actually given this their sanction. They have. It's not religion or that kind of, it's more cultural taboo holding people back, holding families back, that this is a decision of some, other power. No. These are decisions made in the here and now, and the Council of Islamic Ideology, please repeat this everywhere, has said that births should be spaced. So I think we have all the cultural tools which should help us meet the actual unmet need for contraceptives, which is right now only 17%, but it's still there. That's the unmet need for contraceptive. But the demand for contraceptive usage also has to go up and be created. Now we can talk about how that needs to be done, because this is important. The current contraceptive use is only 34%. The CPR will therefore hover at this unhappy scale. So you can do 5 or 6 big things. I'm not going to suggest intractable issues that will take another 5 years. It shouldn't, in terms of, structural matters like population not being part of the NFC mix. That's, of course, one of the things that needs to be looked at, but there are many things that can be done. One of them, and since we're in Islamabad, at the federal level, I have to thank the Prime Minister for putting together a task force on which some of us serve, and also giving it attention. First of all, it needs national attention. Very basic, but that's what it needs. It does not need just one population council to carry the torch. The state at the highest level must give it its focus, attention, and heft, okay? So that's started. But what else do we need from the federal government? I would say that we would need the population fund. There is a population fund funded. We need that fund funded, even if it's 10 billion, because that's what it is supposed to be funded at immediately, but not just stick it there and park it as part of the PSDP. Ring fence it with allocations for the most vulnerable districts. That's where you will find the money well spent. You can identify 40 districts or 20. The task force can do it, the population council can do it. That's the first thing. We also need him, the Prime Minister, to eliminate the tax. I think it's 18%, Zeba, if I'm not mistaken, on contraceptives, right? That's already been done, I'm told, from pressure around the table, but we need it to be notified. Contraceptives need to be cheap and easily available and not taxed, okay? This is a fundamental right. So that needs to be done, all the decision's been taken. Family planning, all provinces should pass, but that's coming too far. Then integrate family planning into, social protection programs like the Benazir Income Support Program, Sehat, Sahulat, Aghosh, Mamta, there are many. Each province runs their own. That if they integrate that, we will see some traction. And some level of national coordination just at the federal ministries, health, education, women's development, social welfare, and climate resilience. Please include the water and climate ministries in these consultations, right? So other than a whole of government approach, the data-driven interventions, etc., what do we need from the provinces and also from the center? The one thing that can change the game is reintroducing a scale-up of what is known, very boring, but Lady Health Workers Program. This will completely change the balance on the ground. I say this because, there is proof that the birth rates went down when the lady health workers were at critical mass. And I say this not because, Shahid Benazir Bhutto brought this about, and Shahnaz Wazir Ali is sitting here. She was her partner in doing so. It made a huge difference. The lady health workers are able to go into homes, access the inner, sanctum of a household, even if there's parda, and have discussions with the family. So you locate agency with the woman, but also advise the man of the family on the virtues and on the benefits of spacing births and having less children. When that happens, you automatically see traction. You see the families reaching for birth solutions, birth spacing, and contraception. So we have numbers also. Somebody will share it with you, I'm sure. But we now have a situation where the lady health workers are shrinking. Some of the provinces are maintaining them. They're even making them the polio vaccinators. These lady health workers have become the polio vaccinators. So they're really the backbone of the entire health service here, and it needs to be expanded with mobiles, and the federal government needs to do one thing. It doesn't need to worry about having a population ministry. Please don't add ministries. Please don't. Just tell your information minister, we are allocating this budget for you, and do a population and family planning blitz in the language, in the national language. The provinces then go down and start going into their local dialects and vernaculars, start putting this on phones, on Androids, on anything. And you will have yourself a campaign that goes into your doors. There are NGOs who will provide question and answer services, again available on your unsmartphones in the villages. And that's where you will have access to healthcare, to reproductive choices. And that recording is then played to the whole family, where it's a remote district you can't access. There are many NGOs, I can refer them all to you, who will do this and who won't necessarily charge. So you build public-private partnerships at the provincial level, and you ask also faith leaders, when you do the national campaign, the faith leaders, the Maulanas and all of that, when they make a Friday sermon, to speak about this, because some brave faith leaders are able to. And I say brave because this requires a little bit of courage. People don't even want to talk about contraception. So that's the key word. CPR has to be pushed. And it will find remarkable acceptability everywhere. And to all health ministers of all provinces, I would say they need to amp up their campaign in the communities and even offer no cost, absolutely no cost solutions, like one province is offering even vasectomies to men who are taking it up. But there are many solutions which I'm sure will be unpacked here. But the main one here from federal is fund it, fund that population fund, don't tax the contraceptives again, and if so, notify the one already that you've agreed to, build the momentum, build a national momentum. The provinces will follow. They will see the benefits. As you have noted, Sindh and KP are already doing so. Sindh is very active, and the health minister will be here. She's been even making local videos in her language, in Sindhi and Urdu, to transmit the message, and we find that it has many takers. So if we don't want our futures to be flatlined, for our children to be able to go to schools already, as I said, 26 million are out of schools, and find the health care, the women to find the health care that they need, for families to put food on their tables, simple things like that. You will be talking about Malthus later. That's what you need to do. And I really want to thank the Dawn Group for, again, being the patron saint of what I call subjects no one cares about, like me, and taking forward a national conversation which is entirely necessary. The climate change conference was excellent too, and I heard someone trolling and asking, what outcomes were there? It is not your job to provide outcomes. The outcome makers are all here. Your job is to provide the public and national conversation, and thank you for doing that. I hope we continue to address this subject at the highest level. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sherry Rehman, for your insightful address outlining the critical balance between population growth and our scarce resources. Now I'd like to invite to the podium MNA Shaista Pervez Malik to deliver a quick address. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and a very good morning and Assalamu alaikum. It is my honor to be standing here and talking on something very, very important and something very close to everybody's heart who are sitting here. Here, the policymakers, the development partners, experts, and community leaders will be talking about a very important issue. And Sherry Rehman, I think, has laid the stage for all the discussions that will be carried on in the different panels in the coming 2 days. I feel that your sitting here, your participation reflects our collective resolve to address population challenges and strengthen family well-being. I thank you all for being here, and I especially thank the DawnMedia group for taking up all the challenges that we are facing and making people aware of what are the challenges. And of course, Population Council ki Begum Sattar Sahiba, who's been taking up this issue for the last so many years, who's persistent, and her persistency shows that we are coming to a near resolve. It has been accepted at the highest level. The Prime Minister is conscious of the fact and appreciates and recognizes that how important family management is, and everybody is on board now. What I feel that it is no more a demographic issue. It is linked with our economy. It is linked with our well-being of the people. It is linked with the future of our children. It is linked with everything a country is judged by. Population management is an important issue. The political will is there, but should now be turned into action, I feel. And the Prime Minister of Pakistan is conscious of the fact that how important population management it is. It is directly linked with our well-being. But I want to leave a food for thought. We need to de-link the National Finance Commission award from population as primary basis of allocation. We have to de-link it because we have to see what the human development bars are. And when you link it with population, the Finance Commission is, I think, misled and misguided. So one thing very important which I want to mention is, in which I think we should be discussing and debating in our panel discussions, is that we have to de-link the Finance Commission from population. And that is important. The fast-growing population is putting a lot of pressure on our resources, hospitals, schools, and jobs, and climate resilience. And leadership realizes and recognizes this. This resolve must be turned into a clear population strategy. And strategy shift should be seen and visible. Sherry has given a very detailed, comprehensive issues that needs to be tackled. I think we will be discussing them in our panel discussions. And as said, it will be a productive discussion and results will come as policy makers, as legislators are sitting here in the audience. I think we will have something concrete by the end of this. And thank you very much once again. I don't want to go into details because everything has been discussed now. Threadbare discussions will be done in the panels. And thank you very much, Dawn Group, and the Population Council for coming up with this good summit. Inshallah, we will be looking forward to a productive discussions in the coming sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Due to sudden changes in his travel schedule, Professor Ahsan Iqbal, the Federal Minister for Planning, Development and Special Initiatives, was not able to attend this session in person, but has sent in a video message. I would like to request you all to please turn your attention to the screen to view it. Thanks.
Development partners, colleagues from government, academia, civil society, and international organizations. Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. It is an honor to address the Dawn Population Summit, an important national forum at defining moment in our journey. I commend DawnMedia Group, the Population Council, and all our development partners for convening this dialogue on an issue that will shape Pakistan's destiny more than any other. Pakistan stands today at a historic demographic turning point. According to the latest NIPS projections, our population will be around 240 million plus, is expected to reach 370 million by 2050. It is a defining challenge for our future stability, prosperity, and competitiveness. To put this in perspective, every single year, Pakistan adds almost the entire population of New Zealand, around 4 to 4.5 million people. Nearly 64% of Pakistanis are below the age of 30, and over 100 million are in our workforce. This immense demographic energy, if left unmanaged, risks turning into social and economic pressures, and we can already feel the strain. Among the most painful expressions of our demographic challenge is the high prevalence of stunting in our children. Nearly 40% of children under 5 are stunted. In several districts, stunting exceeds 50%. Countries with high stunting lose 2 to 3% of GDP annually due to low productivity and impaired human capital. A stunted child earns up to 22% less over a lifetime. This is not a health issue alone. It is a national productivity crisis, a human development emergency, and a direct threat to Pakistan's long-term economic strength and sustainability. I want to acknowledge the commitment of the Prime Minister, who has placed stunting and population management at the highest national priority. Under his leadership, the government is moving towards emergency, multi-sector action integrating health, nutrition, education, social protection, water, and local government systems. At this summit, we must ask ourselves with complete honesty, do we want a generation of illiterate, stunted, malnourished children, or a generation that is well-fed, healthy, educated, skilled, and creative? In a world where brain power of nations determines their competitive advantage, it is not population size, but population quality that drives national progress. Countries win the future not through head counts, but through the strength of their human capital, through educated minds, healthy bodies, skilled hands, and creative thinking. Therefore, Pakistan's priority must be fewer children, but better outcomes for every child. For decades, population was viewed narrowly as a health matter. This fragmented approach showed little progress. In reality, population dynamics shape employment, skills and education, food and water security, urbanization and housing, climate resilience, fiscal stability, innovation, and above all, national security. Countries such as Bangladesh, Vietnam, Iran, Indonesia achieved rapid prosperity by aligning population policy with economic strategy, women's empowerment, and education reforms. Pakistan is now moving decisively in that direction with two-pronged strategy. One, rights-based, accessible family planning services. Through the Ministry of National Health Services and provincial departments, we are focusing on expanded access to modern contraceptives, strengthened supply chains, trained counselors and community outreach, improved provincial service delivery, behavior change communication. Our principle is clear. Every woman must have the right to voluntarily high-quality reproductive health service. 2, forward-looking planning and development strategy. At the Ministry of Planning and Development, we are embedding population and human capital at the heart of national economic policy. Our initiatives include Population Emergency Framework submitted to the Prime Minister, National Strategic Framework on Population and Development, updated NIPS population projections, a unified national knowledge hub integrating PBS, NIPS, NADRA, health, and education data, data for development, platform for real-time monitoring, rollout of Udan Pakistan, a digital ecosystem for family planning, supply chains, and citizen access. Work towards a reformed NFC award aligned with demographic and service delivery realities. Ladies and gentlemen, these reforms move Pakistan from fragmented responses to a cohesive and integrated national strategy. Under Udan Pakistan, the 5 E's framework, exports, e-Pakistan, environment and climate change, energy and infrastructure, and equity and empowerment offers a bold roadmap for national transformation. But none of the 5 E's can reach their full potential unless Pakistan simultaneously addresses population growth, nutrition, and human capital development. Exports need a strong, productive workforce. Digital Pakistan demands cognitive skills and quality education, both undermined by stunting. Environment and climate resilience require reduced pressure on natural resources. Energy efficiency depends on moderated demand linked to population. Equity requires every child to begin life with nutrition and good opportunities. Population management is therefore the foundation of Udan Pakistan, not a parallel agenda. Pakistan has limited but powerful demographic window. The next 25 years will determine whether we rise to prosperity or remain constrained by unmet human development needs. If we reduce unwanted fertility and stunting, empower our women, modernize service delivery, invest in education and skills, align population policy with economic planning, then Pakistan's demographic curve can become the engine of a new era of national renewal. The government under the leadership of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is fully committed to this transformative agenda, but success requires national consensus, provincial ownership, and societal responsibility. Let this summit mark a new beginning, from conversation to coordination and partnerships, from concern to commitment and delivery, from vision to implementation, and from isolated projects to national transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, population is the central axis on which Pakistan's future prosperity will turn. What we do today will determine the destiny of generations. I wish the conference very success. Pakistan Zindabad.
Thank you. This concludes session 1. We will now be moving forward to session 2, titled Restoring Population Balance by 2050. This session focuses on strategies for achieving a balanced population trajectory in Pakistan by the year 2050. Leading experts will present research and insights on demographic trends, policy frameworks, and interventions needed to ensure sustainable development. Our participants for this session are, no worries. Do you need this? Okay. Our participants for this session are Dr. Zeba Sattar, the Country Director,